Dear Night Talk of Uganda, dear presenters, dear participants, good morning. Welcome to the Water Quality Monitoring webinar in the thematic area 2 of Ecosystem Sustainability as a part of Nile Basin Development Forum 2023. This session will start with a keynote speech of the Night Talk of Uganda, Dr. Florence. Then we will continue with a series of 8 presentations from authors. Then after the presentations, we'll have a question and answer session, which will follow with a panel discussion and the wrap-up. For this webinar session, our moderator is Dr. Benjamin Nyiritia, a research hydrologist from the Ministry of Water and Environment in Kenya, and who is part also of the Regional Water Quality Working Group. Without taking much of time, feel free and you are welcome. And I can give floor to Dr. Benjamin to continue with the moderation. Dr. Benjamin. Oh, while you are waiting for the moderator to be again online, just feel comfortable. And I would like to remind you that all the questions will be responded after the session or the sessions. While I'm okay. Sorry, then, as the moderator now is back, let's introduce Dr. Florence, the Night Talk of Uganda. She will be the one to give our keynote address. Dr. Florence is an expert in water quality monitoring, and she's the TAC of the host country, Uganda, which will be hosting the NBDF 7. Without taking much of time, I hand over to the moderator, Dr. Benjamin Nyiritia, to continue with the moderation. The floor is yours, Dr. Benjamin.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Jean, for your introduction. Yeah, and I want to welcome all of us into this webinar on water quality. And I hope all of us are feel comfortable in this webinar. And I would request that for the presenters or rather the speakers, that we make sure that we observe time, because that is very key for this webinar, so that we will not take a long time on maybe one issue. So it is very important as a speaker, when you are invited, to observe time. And now I would want we welcome Dr. Florence Grace Adogo, the Nile TAC of Uganda, so that she can give us the welcoming remarks for this water quality, that is WQ1 webinar. Welcome, Dr. Florence Adogo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you very well.
Okay. Good morning, dear presenters and participants of the webinar on water quality monitoring. I join the moderator to welcome you all to the 7th Nile Basin Development Forum. The Nile Basin Development Forum is a high-level regional event convened every 3 years by the Nile Basin Initiative in collaboration with its member states and in partnership with development partners. This event is a science policy practice dialogue that provides an opportunity for constructive reflection on contemporary information, knowledge, and best practices, as well as building partnership among professionals, especially in transboundary water resources management and development. This is the 7th Nile Basin Development Forum being held. It all started in 2006, and it has been running in other countries like Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Sudan, and now Uganda. I want to take this opportunity to appreciate the Republic of Uganda for hosting this 7th Nile Basin Development Forum. I also want to appreciate all of you, dear presenters and participants in this at this webinar. As you all well know, water quality is one of the major challenges that societies face today. It has impacts on human health. It has impacts on food production, ecosystems, economic growth, and general the productivity of the environment. And you all are aware that when water does not fit the intended purpose, then that water is not available. And therefore, deteriorating water quality leads to water scarcity, diseases, and low productivity. Now, this water quality deterioration also translates directly into environment, social, and economic challenges, which are key tenets of sustainable development. And in this case, it is has impact on the achievement of our sustainable development goals. It is even made worse with the impact of climate change. Now, within the Nile Basin, like elsewhere on the globe, the deteriorating freshwater resources is largely caused by several other factors, among which is the discharge of significant quantities of untreated or poorly treated wastewater, stormwater leachates, solid waste, poor solid waste management. All these empty themselves into our rivers and lakes, including our groundwater aquifers and even coastal water. There are several newly emerging pollutants, despite the fact that the world has several multilateral conventions and agreements linked to management of chemicals or biological substances. We are aware that we have in the environment chemical waste, both organic and inorganic, biological waste. Some are mixed, including polymers, organometallic, e-waste, radioactive materials, and other hazardous wastes. And in this changing climate, this makes it worse, and the water quality challenges become a big one with long-term impacts on human and ecosystems. Within the Nile Basin, there are some challenges which are peculiar. But one of them, which is very important, the challenge, especially on water quality management, is linked to inadequate knowledge base and investments that have been made to make sure that we address these challenges. A few of them include limited, well-coordinated, and all-inclusive water quality and sediment monitoring, an integrated program. We also have, in some cases, outdated infrastructure and technology, or completely not there, especially in terms of water quality monitoring stations in hotspot catchments. There is a lack of resources, of course, and personnel, and equipment that is proper to do the work that we intend to, depending on the challenge. There's inavailability of data. As I've said, we don't have adequate knowledge There's limited dissemination and sharing. The institutional capacities are limited. Policies and standards are not well harmonized. And there's general lack of awareness and involvement of citizens in management of pollution. Of course, there are several mechanisms in which we can overcome water quality challenges, ranging from legal frameworks, various establishment of the institutions linked to water resources and enhancing their capacities, but also in terms of concretizing on how to get information that represent the issues in the basin. Now, under the Nile Basin Initiative, there are several ongoing efforts that have been put towards addressing water quality challenges. And these include having the Nile Basin Transboundary Water Quality Monitoring Strategy 2007, a preliminary assessment study to design sediment and water quality monitoring systems in Eastern Nile. We have design of a sediment sampling network for the Nile Equatorial Lakes region and the training on sediment modeling. This one was done in 2014. We have establishment of the regional hydrological and water quality monitoring systems, which are ongoing. We have development of a basin water quality database, application of multi-criteria analysis method, combining technical considerations and policies for identification of water pollution hotspots for investment planning and privatization. We also have support to water quality monitoring, water quality information through provision of basic laboratory equipment in various areas. A lot has been done, but a lot needs to be done. So in this webinar session on water quality monitoring, we expect to exchange knowledge and experience, discuss, benchmark, and come up with the possible best practices and solutions that can enable us to address issues of water quality in the Nile Basin. Some leading questions and others that may come up in the presentations to come would include: what contribution is the Nile Basin making towards water quality monitoring and management in the Nile Basin? What are the challenges and opportunities for water quality management in the basin? What are the best practices and innovative approaches that we can adopt in water quality monitoring within the basin? I wish to once again thank you very much for listening to me and wish you very good deliberations during this session. Thank you very much, moderator and participants.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Florence, for your inspiring and quite interesting introduction to this webinar. Thanks for that. You have highlighted the key issues which the basin endures on issues of water quality, and also some of the ongoing projects. Now, participants, for those who are joining us, welcome. We are on the first water quality webinar, and we have several speakers. So the outline of this webinar will be: we have a series of like 7 speakers who will do presentations, and then after the presenters do their presentations, that is when we are going to have a time for Q&A, that is question and answer. And I would encourage that if you have any question, please, as a speaker is presenting, use the Q&A so that you can post your question there, and also try to indicate the speaker which that question is addressed to, so that during the time of Q&A, he or she can be able to look at that, or even during the duration of the webinar, the speaker can also try to respond to you. So if we will have ample time during Q&A, we'll have some of us ask questions. Then after the Q&A, we are going to have the panel discussion, whereby we will have 3 key panelists who will try to address some specific key issues on water quality in the Nile Basin. So that is the order. We expect that within 100 minutes, or maybe from now, the next 90 minutes, we can be through with this webinar. So I would request your patience. I request all the speakers, please, to stick to your time, and we will be able to proceed well. So we go to the first speaker of this webinar, and this is Mr. Axel Auret. Mr. Axel is the head of the Environmental Prediction and Information System Division within the Research and Innovation Department of the Antaire Group in France. He has 22 years experience in water quality, water resources management, decision-making tools in the water sector, water quality modeling, and the definition of the trend scenarios for driving forces and climate. So Mr. Axel will present a presentation on the title, Implementation of Decision-Making and Strategic Planning Tools on Water Quality at the Scale of the Nile Basin, a comprehensive approach to data capitalization, data analysis, and modeling of surface water quality in key areas of the Nile Basin. So, Mr. Axel, welcome. You have 15 minutes for this presentation. Over to you, Mr. Axel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Benjamin. So I will share my screen. Okay, I hope that it is clear for everybody. So thank you very much. So I will make a presentation of what you with the title of what you already mentioned. So implementation of a decision-making and strategic planning tool on water quality at the scale of the Nile Basin. So this presentation is coming from a project that is currently performed by Antaire Group and BRLE for the Nile Basin Initiative. But before going in detail of the project and outcome of this project, I just want to make a brief introduction and kind of reminder of what is an integrated approach for water quality, but more generally, what is an integrated approach for basin management as a whole. So integrated water resource management, which water quality is full part of the system. So integrated water resource management, it's a question of time and scale, meaning that we are facing two different issues at different scale and at different time step. So taking into consideration these all management, so we will distinguish the operational management. So operational management, it is something that you are performing at daily time step or weekly time step, and that is focusing on certain station on certain point. If I make a parallel with water quality management and monitoring, operational management is the fact to instrument and to measure some water quality parameters. For example, I will measure nitrates on certain station on the basin. So currently, when you are dealing with these elements, so basically gathering some data, so you are in the frame of what we can call early warning, and the issue of this operational management is to manage daily or weekly the data analysis and the data capitalization. So here we are in the scope of capitalization and knowledge of the water quality. So we are in the frame of management, but really at the data management scale and information management. Taking into consideration the operational management, then you will be able to make to have a new information, a new knowledge, what we call tactical management. What is tactical management? Tactical management, it is something that is addressing more general issues. So here at the operational management, we are dealing, for example, as I mentioned, on nitrates. And the tactical management will perform some technical indicators. For example, how many times by months or by years I was over or under certain limit of nitrate of nitrate. So here it is a transformation of the data and the information to be able to perform some technical indicators and to compute some technical indicators for the tactical management. So we will see that in our project, we will transform these elements. And then after having gathering this information and data, after having performed some technical indicators to have a first row analysis of the basin, then you can pass to what we call the strategic management. So the strategic management will be performed more in a larger scale and will address different time steps, meaning that when you are, so the strategic management is based on decision and modeling. So meaning that you will be able to perform some analysis that will bring you an information or perspective at yearly or 5 years, or maybe sometimes more time frame in the future. So here you will perform an analysis of local impact, corrective action. You will perform some scenarios to imagine what will be the future. And having all this information, then you will be able to address what we call the planning and prospective. So is the executive management. You will be able to decide of what kind of action should be engaged and what kind of mitigation action can be engaged as a discussion for the basin management, So you see that the integrated water resource management, and especially for water quality, so it's a question of time and scale. And our project aims to address the 3 boxes of this schematic, meaning the capitalization of knowledge of water quality data sets, the produce of mapping of areas of polluting pressure that potentially impact water quality. And then the last step of our project is to perform some modeling of water quality on certain key area of the basin. So how it has been implemented inside our project? First of all, the capitalization of knowledge of water quality. So what has been done? It's the development of a web-based tool for water quality data management and dissemination. So currently this database has been developed. It is here in the middle. So this database has been developed to accept and to integrate all the water quality analysis that can be performed in each country, meaning that performed by laboratory, performed on a classical monitoring network, if I can say that, on the classical process of monitoring network, going on the field, taking some samples, bring to laboratory, make some analysis, and that these analyses can be stored and combined inside a single database. This database is also ready to accept real-time data and will be able to mix all this information. So it is from the input part of the database. So I will not go in detail of the database itself, but we have to take into consideration that this database can be accessible through a web-based tool that will be accessible for each country and will be able to communicate with the IKP platform of NBI. And also, thanks to what we call API, all the data set will be accessible for third-party service or other modeling or analytical tools surrounding. So currently, this database has been populated in the first step. So it is currently taking into consideration almost 200 water quality stations among the Nile Basin. So mainly the water quality station that has been gathered are concerning rivers and lakes, and few of them are concerning groundwater, meaning that this database is ready to accept different type of stations, rivers, lakes, and groundwater. We have almost 1,000 samples. So what we call samples is the fact it is a station that has been sampled at a single date. So we have almost 1,000 samples and around 45,000 analytical results. So these analytical results are concerning around 70 different parameters. So our data review and data collection has been performed during the 2023, and the data that has been integrated into the database are covering a range of dates between 1978 to 2019. Most of the results are concerning Rwanda, but we have also some information for Tanzania, Egypt, Sudan, Kenya, and Uganda. We have to also take into consideration that this database is able to visualize spatial data sets such as derivative product from remote sensing. So here it was what we implement for what we call the operational management. Operational management, as a reminder, the fact to collect, to gather, to structure, to centralize all the information and the data sets for daily, and to have a first view of the water quality situation of the basin. Taking into consideration all these results and information, so we implement a first tactical management map, which is representing a global map for highly potential water quality impact. So as briefly explained, so we identify 3 different types of pressure that can affect the basin, the Nile Basin. The direct pressure, so direct pressure is a pressure that can be considered when the emission can be located at a single point. We identified also diffuse pressure, so a pressure can be considered as diffuse if the emission cannot be located at a single point, but more in an area or a sector, and what we call morphological pressure. So the morphological pressure are all the pressures that can modify the bed and the shape of the river, meaning a dam, for example, or when you are passing through some irrigation area, so you need to modify the shape of the river, so it can modify habitat, etc. So taking into consideration these 3 types of pressure, we gathered some spatial data sets and also water quality data sets, and we mixed all these information to produce a representative map of highly potential water quality impact among the basin. So as you see here, we identify different location among the basin, and this map can support the decision to focus on certain hotspots and or to focus on where the effort can be made to add some data set to monitor a bit more and to identify how this problem can be located precisely. So taking into consideration the database and this map, a cross-analysis has been performed between pressure and pressure impact map and water quality. So here, yes. So here you can see chemical oxygen demand map. Here it is the total phosphorus, chlorophyll A map, and conductivity map. I will not go in detail, but we have to take into consideration that the previous map has been crossed with this first analytical result to validate the initiative of the water quality course map. Finally, we identified 6 main hotspots that has been modeled with a Qual2K model. So Qual2K is a steady state and one-dimension model that has been implemented to initialize certain water quality modeling of impact. So these 6 hotspots are located in Akagera, Akanyeru River, Victoria Lake Shore, White Nile, Blue Nile, and Victoria Nile before entering Sudan. So I will not go in detail, but all these 6 models has been setting up and are now ready to be used and to be upgraded with future water quality analysis. But these models are ready to be used and to be shared with country, so it can serve all the strategic management to make some scenarios around the water quality and among mitigation action or corrective action that can be implemented in the future. So thank you very much for your attention, and I am open for the question if you have around this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Axel, for that wonderful presentation on some of the work which you have done in the Nile Basin, especially in trying to identify the key hotspots in terms of water quality in the basin. So participants, if you have any question to Axel, I would encourage you to use the chat box, and you can try to address that question to Engineer Axel. Now, for participants, I would request, because I see that some are joining and others are exiting. When you join, please, can you, on the chat box, can you state your name, the institution or your affiliation, and also the country where you come from? Here it's good that we use the chat box for introduction. Already, I know we are more than 60 participants, and we are expecting more to join as we proceed. So now our next presentation is from Stuart Warner. Stuart Warner works for UNEP GAMS and SDG indicator 6.32 specialist. He formerly worked for the GAMS Water Capacity Management Development Center based at the University College Cork in Ireland. He has a master's in water quality and has published in the areas of water quality monitoring and assessment and citizen science approaches to data collection, and was a section editor for the Elsevier's encyclopedia. Stuart Warner is going to give to the water quality monitoring capacity of the Nile Basin countries through the lens of the SDGs and a novel way to fill the data gaps. So, Stuart Warner, welcome. You have 15 minutes.
Thanks very much, Dr. Benjamin. That's great. Absolutely delighted to be here this morning. It's great to see some very familiar names in the participant list, so it's great to see you again. My name is Stuart Warner. I work for UNEP's GEMS Water Programme, and my role is all about SDG Indicator 632. And what I want to talk about this morning is not so much about the actual water quality, but how this SDG indicator can provide great insight into the capacity of countries to monitor, which can lead into which is the foundation for a proper assessment of water quality and helps to understand the pressures which the freshwaters are facing. And I'd like to lastly talk about a novel way to fill some of these data gaps that we see. Okay, so I can't really talk too much about the indicator without describing a little bit about the process. So in UNEP, we have what we call a data drive every 3 years. So we go out to all 193 member states and we ask them to report on this SDG indicator using the water quality data they have. And this indicator is about good ambient water quality. So we ask countries to report on the quality of their rivers, their lakes, and their groundwaters using a very simple, straightforward methodology. And just to be clear here, the water bodies, these can be as kind of a small section of a river, maybe a small tributary, or a section along the main channel of the river between two confluences on the main channel. A lake would be considered a water body. Sometimes they can be divided into smaller water bodies depending on the type of lake. And groundwaters, aquifers, are of course can be considered water bodies as well. In addition to the actual water quality or the classification of these water bodies as either good or not good, we also ask countries, we actually don't ask for the water quality data, we ask simply just for the output of this assessment. So we ask them for the classification of each water body, and we also ask them for additional information, such as the number of water bodies that are included in this assessment, the number of monitoring stations that are used, the data it comes from, the number of monitoring values, so these are the specific number of count of phosphate or nitrate measurements. And we also ask for the target threshold values used in the assessment. So this gives us some great insight into how strict or how lenient the actual assessment process is in countries. I'm not going to talk about that today because that's a whole nother, I could talk for hours about that subject alone. But today, I'm just focusing very much on the number of water bodies and the number of monitoring values that we're looking at for the Nile Basin. And this is really important, this information. And honestly, I think sometimes this information, this extra information about the monitoring capacity of countries is sometimes more important than the actual indicator score itself. So, because there's so much goes into this and there's so much information can be gleaned from this type of this data drive. It really is useful in helping to steer GEMS Waters and UNEP's work in capacity development. So you can see this data drive that we do every 3 years, and just to say we're just coming to the end of the third global data drive. The first one was 2017. The second one was in 2020, and now we're just coming to the end of the third one. So we're getting great insight into this. So you can see this, apart from the indicator score that countries report for this indicator, but it's like a giant scoping study, and we get great insight into what's going on in countries. This graph on the left is one of our kind of key findings from the 2020 data drive. So it demonstrates that the lower the income of countries, the less water bodies that were reported on. The coloured bar on the left talks about it's the number of water bodies. So that in total, there were 77,000 water bodies reported on globally. Most of these were rivers. There were some lakes and some groundwaters. Each of the orange columns represents the number of water bodies, but they have been categorized into GDP bins. So each column represents about 20 or so countries, and it's the cumulative total of the water bodies reported on in each GDP bin. So the poorest countries, and poorest 20 or so countries, are here on the left in this very low bar, and that was about 1,300 water bodies were reported on, compared to the wealthiest countries, the highest GDP countries, where nearly 60,000 water bodies were reported on. So this makes it really clear that low-income countries struggle to be able to report on their water qualities. And as we heard in the keynote speech from Dr. Adongo, you know, our fresh waters are under so much pressure that we really do need to better understand what these pressures are and how water quality is changing over time. Because without this information, this is leading us into a huge data gap, which is an information gap. And this leaves those people who are directly dependent on these water sources at risk. And that was one of our key messages in 2020. So this is an analysis of using that information specifically for the Nile Basin countries. This graph on the left has the countries listed, and each of the bars refers to the number of water bodies reported on in most recently. So most of the countries reported in 2020, but there are a couple, Sudan and South Sudan, we only have information from 2017. But you can see the number of water bodies is variable between the different countries. And bearing in mind, this is for the whole country. It's not just the portion of the country which feeds into the Nile Basin. We do have that information, but that's not included here. But it is clear that the number of water bodies reporting on is generally low for the size of the countries we're describing. And this is something that needs to be addressed, I think. So this idea about there's been great progress over the last number of years, but the number of water bodies that there is information available for is still quite low across the Nile Basin countries. And this information is just represented in this map in the middle. On the right, this figure just shows us the same countries again, but in terms of the number of monitoring values that were reported on. So this is kind of the quantity of data which is feeding into this indicator calculation. And we can see that Kenya in this case is high and flying above everyone else in this case. This is all really good information that helps to highlight these different capacity gaps between different countries. And it's a very useful benchmarking tool. You can go into this in much more detail and look at the size of the country and the wetness of the country and get a more robust metric. But even at this scale and using at this level of detail, it does provide good, useful information. So it does provide a kind of an inter-country assessment, which is useful, of course. But more importantly, it can be used to kind of track progress over time. So in countries who are looking to expand their monitoring programs, you can look at this information over time and see how it's changing, which is useful, of course, as well. So that was one of the kind of key message here was about that we can use the SDGs and this reporting process as a metric, as a scoping study to get great insight into how countries are monitoring their water bodies. And I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about some of the work that we're doing in UNEP GEMS Water, which is looking at citizen science and how this is a useful tool to help fill some of these data gaps. And it's not just about data gaps, but it also, by providing this community level engagement, really can be a useful tool in actually protecting and improving or restoring water quality at the very local level. So we have currently with like 6 projects in Africa at the moment, and the most relevant one for this is we have a transboundary project for the Mara, between the WRA in Kenya and the Ministry of Water in Tanzania. But we have lots of projects, and the most advanced of these, and the ones where we've made the greatest progress so far, which is the longest running, is in Sierra Leone. And this project is led by the National Water Resource Management Agency of Sierra Leone, and it's supported by our partners Earthwatch. And the objective of all of these projects is to test how best to integrate citizen-derived data into the national monitoring and assessment programs. So the idea that these water quality citizen programs they're a little bit top-down in terms of that by design, we were looking at trying to identify where we have data gaps and then approaching the villages and the citizens and the communities around those areas and looking to fill these data gaps. But there is great potential, and there is so many different water quality citizen science projects globally. We see this as essential. If SDG target 6.3 is ever going to be achieved, in my honest opinion, that won't be possible without some level of citizen engagement going forward. So just to give you a kind of a quick insight into the benefits of this approach is, this is the one single river basin in Sierra Leone, the Rockall River Basin, where we're most active. And this map on the left just shows you the output of the assessment for this river basin using the agencies, the national agencies data alone. And you can see there is patchy coverage within the river basin. But you must always bear in mind that in 2017, when we first asked the agency to report on this indicator, they said they couldn't. They didn't have any data whatsoever. So they've made huge advancements in a very short period to be able to develop their own monitoring program initially, and then on top of that, we've layered this citizen science project. And you can see on the right, this is the output of that same assessment, but using the same methodology, using both the agency and the citizen science data together. And the coverage is much better, and there's twice as much data has gone into this. Twice as many water bodies have been assessed in this, so we have a much better information. Now, there are, of course, lots of questions over precision and accuracy of these data, but when we're looking at long-term water quality trends and wide-scale spatial trends, the question is are these data suitable for this kind of work? And our early signs are that yes, they are. So just quickly in summary, we all know that the quality of water in our rivers and lakes and groundwater is under pressure. Monitoring and assessment capacity is limited everywhere, not just in the Nile Basin countries. Data gaps lead to information gaps, which leads to inadequate management. And this idea that reporting on the SDG indicator 632, it can be used to track the monitoring capacity as well as the water quality trends. And there are opportunities to help fill these data gaps, and especially around citizen science. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Stewart, for your wonderful presentation. It is really eye-opening, especially on the use of citizen science in improving national water quality assessment and monitoring. Thank you so much. Now we go to the next presentation, and Dr. Jan has over 19 years of technical and research experience in the field of integrated water resources management, catchment management plans, rainwater harvesting systems, hydrologic and water quality modeling, water quality assessment, and monitoring. Dr. Jan is currently the regional water quality expert at the Nile Basin Initiative Secretariat in Entebbe, Uganda. So Dr. Jan is going to do the first presentation on water quality and sediment monitoring in the Nile Basin countries. Welcome, Dr. Jan. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Benjamin. I'm going to present on water quality and sediment monitoring in the Nile Basin country. We have some global water quality issues, which are common not only in the Nile Basin, but also which are global. Like an overview, 1 in 9 people worldwide use drinking water from an improved and safe source, and 2.4 billion people live without any form of sanitation. Lack of sanitation is one of the most significant forms of water pollution. And every day, at least 2 million tons of sewage and other effluent drain toward water. Industrial discharge are estimated to 300 to 400 megaton, which are discharged to the water body. Water quality issue, which are not particular to Nile Basin, non-important source of pollution, which results in a reduction of about 1/3 of global biodiversity. You can see on the picture, for example, the plastic in Nile River near Juba. And the use of wastewater in agriculture also is important for livelihood, but is associated also with serious health risks. Erosion from deforestation and agricultural land use are among also the key water quality issue in the Nile Basin. This picture is showing the issue of sedimentation and erosion in one tributary of Lake Victoria in Kisumu sub-basin. The basin water quality management challenges include the lack of water quality in the sediment monitoring programs, lack of funding resource, and human capacity and institution, and also lack of harmonized policy standard on water quality monitoring. And this is amplified by the low level of awareness and development of citizens in pollution prevention activities. This presentation is part of NCR project, the Nile Cooperation for Climate Resilience project, which is being implemented by Nile Basin Initiative, which is a 5-year project which will end in 2025. Under this project, there is a regional hydrological and water quality monitoring network composed of 52 regional stations for water quality monitoring, and 43 stations for sediment sampling, and 39 water quality sensors to be installed in those hydromet stations. But also, the project will provide lab equipment and water quality sediment feed kits, plus the capacity building of water quality experts and the development of the Nile Basin the water quality database. The objective of this presentation, this paper, is to evaluate the current state of Nile Basin country in monitoring of the water quality and the sediment. This has involved the collection of data and information water quality monitoring program and the institution in each country. It has involved also the visiting of the water quality monitoring station and the labs in the Nile Basin country, and the meeting with the National Water Quality Task Team members, and checking the availability of sediment and water quality feed kits and water quality sensors and the station. The country need assessment were conducted from July 2022 up to March 2023, and it has been done in all the nine Nile Basin countries, excluding Egypt. The picture is showing some visit of water quality monitoring station, the laboratory, the meeting with the National Water Quality Task Team members, and even the some station where water quality hydromet equipment were being installed. The key findings from this assessment was that legal and institutional tools on water quality monitoring exist in Nile Basin riparian countries, laws, policies, and standards, but inconsistency in water quality monitoring programs in terms of water quality monitoring frequency and water quality variable monitored was observed. Telemetric equipment for real-time monitoring are found in some countries like Ethiopia, Uganda, and Rwanda, but not necessary for water quality monitoring, mainly for hydrological monitoring. The data management system are available in some countries and do not exist in the other. And the data is scattered in different institutions. As a summary of assessment of available equipment, this table is showing, for example, where we have the basic and the feed kits, the sediment sampling kits, and where we have water quality sensors. Democratic Republic of Congo is not applicable for this assessment because we didn't manage to visit the laboratory, which is part of the project, due to security reasons. Sorry, the left map is showing, at least in Ethiopia, where we have a big network of sediment monitoring. Concerning the water quality variable monitored in the Nile Basin, mainly the basic parameters like pH, EC, turbidity, DO, temperature, and TDS and nutrient are generally monitored in all of the country, mainly using the handheld equipment. Pesticide, microplastic, bacteriological, organic pollutant, and heavy metal are not monitored in the majority of the countries. And where we are monitoring them, sometimes they have the equipment with a lack of minor spare parts, or even sometimes the reagent. The monitoring frequency differs among the countries from monthly to quarterly. For example, you can see in one table from one country where we have for primary parameters, for food beverage, the monitoring frequency change just from a station to another, and depending on the purpose of the monitoring. As the recommendation, the funding resources to implement regular water quality monitoring program in the basin are needed. Advanced analytical equipment are needed, and where we do exist also, like atomic absorption spectrometer, GEC, gas chromatography, they have lack of reagent and minor spare part. Initiate the transboundary water quality monitoring network is needed, and there is a need to build the capacity of water quality expert in sampling analysis and in operation and maintenance of laboratory equipment. Because in some laboratories, we have equipment, decent, modern equipment, but with the minor troubleshooting, the equipment are not working. Also, there is a need also to have a kind of ambient water quality standard to ease the classification of ambient water as set by SDG 6.32. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Jan, for your good presentation on water quality and water quality monitoring. That is water and sediment monitoring in the Nile Basin. This is quite eye-opening, especially on the key issues and some of the work which you have already been able to do as a Nile NBI. And I think participants, we are following up on these presentations very well. For those who are joining us, would request you to, if you have a question, that you use the chat box and you try to address that question to the right speaker, so that maybe on the course of the presentations, he or she can respond to your question. Later, after the presenters, we are going to try and have a Q&A session whereby some of these questions will be handled. Also, if you're joining us, please can you put your name, your affiliation, in the chat box so that we can understand the people whom we have and where they come from. Let us go to the next presentation. Our next presenter is Professor Emmanuel Kasimbazi, University. He has a PhD in law from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, a Master's of Laws from the University of Calgary in Canada, Bachelor of Laws from the University of Dar es Salaam, and a Diploma in Legal Practice from the Law Development Center. Professor Kasimbazi is a policy, legal, and institutional expert and has worked as a consultant on a number of projects on the water law and policy-related projects in Uganda and other countries. He is the environmental law expert of the Agreement on the Conservation of African Eurasian Migratory Waterbirds. He is an active member of the IUCN as a member of the Academy on Environmental Law and a member of the IUCN Commission on Environmental Law. He is also a fellow of the Ugandan National Academy of Sciences and also the African Academy of Sciences, and also not to forget the World Academy of Sciences. Professor Emmanuel is going to give us a presentation on the policy and legal framework for water quality management in the Nile Equatorial Lakes region. Professor Emmanuel, welcome. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm honored to be here, and it's a very important, session because water quality issues really are the determinant of our lives. Without water quality, then we cannot survive. So in this presentation, I'll give introduction and look at the role of water quality laws, regulatory efforts and areas of water quality, and then look at the regulatory framework applicable to water quality in the region, and then make some recommendations. Now, of course, as you know, the Nile Equatorial region would include Burundi, DRC, Kenya, Rwanda, United Republic of Tanzania, and Uganda. And these countries have made, policies and legal interventions to address water quality issues, especially as far as the Lake, Victoria is concerned. But you'll find that in these countries, the interventions vary because they are not at the same level. Now, so why do we need water quality laws? Water quality laws are very, very important because they're the foundation in water standards, monitoring, inspections, and permits. But in some cases, they can also be modified to meet the current needs. So the laws that are needed, really, there's a need to regulate water pollutants as far as the volume of water is concerned. Because these standards are very, very important because as the scientists have already said, there's a need to regulate water pollutants, for example, chemical, physical, biological, but also the need to, regulate, the water that is consumed by, human beings, but also industrial use, as well as domestic recreation and aquatic habitat. Additionally, these laws are very, very important because they regulate the alteration of the chemical, physical, biological, and characteristics of water resources. Now, so there are regulatory efforts in the areas of water quality that we need to, appreciate as we develop, water quality policies and laws. One, regulatory efforts include identifying and categorizing water pollutants, dictating acceptable pollutant concentration in water resources, and then limiting pollutant discharges from the effluent sources. Then the regulated areas include sewage treatment and disposal, industrial agricultural waste management, control of water runoff from construction sites, and also urban environment. Now, in terms of regulatory framework, there are three levels of regulatory framework. The first regulatory framework is at the international level. Now, the international level here, we are looking at treaties that, of course, deal with, state obligations, which, of course, contain conventions, agreements, but also what they call international customary law. And actually, we find that some of these customary international principles have been codified by international organizations, principally UN organizations, for example, UNEP and others, and FAO. Now, when we look at the international, regulatory framework, there are specific real principles that are very, very important in terms of regulating water quality. The first one is obligation not to cause significant harm. And this is very, very important because it states that no state in an international drainage is allowed to use the water courses in their territory in a way that would cause significant harm to other basin states or to the environment, of course, which includes human health and safety. And this one has been really recognized in several, instruments, which I will not go into, but I think you can see them on the screen. Then the second principle is principle of notification, consultation, and negotiation. This is very, very important because a state has the right to advance notice, consultation, and bargaining situations where another riparian state has planned use of a shared water courses. So in other words, again, this is really to help, not to endanger the rights of another or the interest of another riparian state. The other principles, I think, would include, would include, polluter notification. But in the interest of time, let us now go to the gaps. So as far as international water conventions, which are very, very important. But when you review the policy framework of some of these countries, you'll find that South Sudan and DRC are not, of course, signatories to some of these conventions that deal with, quality issues and pollution, like Basel Convention, Stockholm Convention, African Region Merited Bird Convention Agreement. But also, you find that in most countries, there's limited implementation of obligations that are created under the conventions and the agreements. I think I've covered that. Now, so at the regional level, we also have instruments that have been developed, which are very, very important as far as water quality is concerned, especially at the ESC level. Of course, we have the treaty, the East African Community Treaty, the Protocol for Sustainable Development of Lake Victoria, very important, ESC Protocol for Environment and Natural Resources, the Convention for Establishment of Lake Victoria Fisheries Organization, the Lake Victoria Transport Act, and Lake Victoria Basin Commission, Act. Now, these instruments have also created measures that the states are obliged to comply with, and these are very, very important. For example, the measures include to control pollution arising from development activities and to reduce municipal waste, and also to adopt, common environmental standards for control of atmospheric, terrestrial, and water pollution arising from urban and industrial development activities. How important that is, but also exchange information on atmospheric, industrial, and other forms of pollution and conservation technology. Then also, the other one is that the states are required to harmonize what in the United Republic of Tanzania, they call it approximate policies, regulations for sustainable and integrated management of shared water resources. So, so you'll find that also in these instruments, we have polluter pays principle, and also the requirement of monitoring and evaluation, ensuring compliance with policies and agreed action concerning Lake Victoria, but also the states are required to take all appropriate legal economic realities of the basin and prevent pollution from non-point sources. Now, what are the gaps? Of course, as you know, the Nile River Basin Cooperative Framework is not yet in force, but also there's no specific policy or protocol that is water quality regulation in the region. But also, most of these countries have not met the targets, especially Goal 6 of SDG. But also there is limited implementation of some of these instruments, especially the ESC Industrial Municipal Effluent Standards and the Data Information and Knowledge Sharing Protocol on Lake Victoria, which is very, very important in terms of data sharing. Now, when we come to the national policies, now national policies have developed measures that include the following. Number one, water pollution classification. Number two, water quality standards. Number three, water and waste discharge licenses permits. Then number five, data collection and access. Now, when we look at all of these instruments, there's still gaps that we need to address. Number one, limited implementation and enforcement of the policy and legal provision of water quality management. We've talked all of this, but they're not implemented. Number two, in some countries, there are still limited water quality standards and guidelines at the national level, and limited ordinances and bylaws at the local governments, because in the decentralization system, they also need to have a regulatory framework. Then you'll find that in countries like South Sudan, they have really not made a significant law that really deals with, water issues. Then also you'll find the other gap is that in some of these countries, we'll find that there are no regulations to implement the main acts. Then the other gap is that the regulation of sanitation, which is very critical, is not so closely integrated with management water, especially solid waste storm waste management, and some cases, human feces. And this of course lead to waterborne diseases, which of course is a challenge in most countries. And the other gap is that there is no harmonization of water sampling, laboratory testing methods. Now, what do I recommend? That there is a need really to develop mechanism to strengthen water quality policy legal framework, especially through platform sharing experiences and good practices. And also the other framework is that the countries should develop a roadmap, because each country has an administrative organization and procedures that are specific to its domestic legal order. But also there's a need to harmonize. We need to be together and approximate water quality and applying principles between countries, basins, and regions. So thank you very much. Legal issues are very many, but that's what I can be able to do in 10 minutes. Asante sana. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Sorry, we really understand that legal matters, they are involving. Yeah, sorry for the short time. Thank you for the highlights on the legal and regulatory framework regarding water quality in the Nile Basin, and you have really identified some of the key issues like the need to harmonize these policies, and also the gaps which you have highlighted. So we go to our next presentation, and our next presenter happens to be, again, Dr. Jan Namugize. I think I've given an introduction of Dr. Jan. He is the regional water quality expert at the Nile Basin Initiative Secretariat based in Entebbe, Uganda. Dr. Jean is going to give a presentation on assessment of the capacity of water quality monitoring laboratories in the Nile Basin countries. Welcome, Dr. Jan. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you again, moderator. Good morning again, participants. This presentation is about the assessment of the capacity of water quality monitoring laboratories in Nile Basin countries. The key highlight here is that the laboratory assessed during this assignment are those ones which are part of the basin, which are not reflecting the reality for the whole country, so that the information provided for the country is not the representation of the whole country. The design and implementation. The design and implementation strategy for regional water quality monitoring network was developed as part of the regional Nile Basin hydrometeorology system in 2015. These include the regional hydrological network, a regional meteorological network, and water quality interventions, among others. You can see this technical report of hydrological monitoring design of 2015, which came up with some water quality monitoring station and the laboratories which are part of the monitoring. In addition to that, also in 2007, a Nile transboundary water quality monitoring strategy was developed, which highlighted the key parameters to analyze, the laboratory to be part of this monitoring strategy, and also it highlighted also some reference laboratory during that time. But during the implementation of NCR project, some information has changed, and the reason why we did the country need assessment to update information from even the hydromet design report of 2015, sorry. The water quality laboratories identified in 2015 include for each country and some of the status indicated in 2015. In total, there were 11 laboratories among 9 basin countries. The 2 countries having 2 laboratories were Rwanda and Kenya, making the total number of laboratories 11. Then under NCR project, in its component related to improving national water quality monitoring system, very key, these 5 activities related to capacity building of laboratories, like provision of the kits for water quality monitoring, provision of laboratory equipment, the proposal for improvement of processes, harmonization of water quality standards for testing and sampling and the quality control protocols, and the capacity building for laboratory technical staff, and installation of a standalone database in national laboratories. The objective of this assessment was to evaluate the technical and the human capacity of the water quality monitoring laboratory in the basin. And this was done through country need assessment mission in the Nile Basin riparian countries from July 2022 to March 2023. And we use also a checklist, the questionnaire to assess the human and technical capacity of lab, quality management and accreditation, readiness. And in total, 9 labs were visited because the number has reduced because some labs have changed or are no longer existing in those particular countries. Excluding the lab in the DRC, which we didn't manage to access. And for Rwanda, initially it was 2 labs, but now during our country need assessment, there was only 1 laboratory. The checklist questionnaire was including to collect information on the basic infrastructure requirements for the laboratory, equipment, apparatus, and the chemical check, laboratory equipment like feed kits, laboratory apparatus, inventory of equipment, operational manual for equipment, chemical inventory if they are done or not, testing protocol for various parameters, and the laboratory system if applicable. And this checklist has many sub-questions as well. And also we looked at the laboratory operations and the training and need assessment, and if there is availability of advanced sensor for the field and telemetric system for water quality monitoring. It's an example of the 2 laboratories visited. On the left side is the laboratory of the University of Rwanda in Rwanda, and the right one is for the laboratory of Water Resource Board in Kisumu, Kenya. But what they have in common, both of them, you can see that they have the most recent equipment, atomic absorption spectrophotometer for heavy metal analysis, but now it's not functioning due, for example, for the lack of minor spare part like the lamps, the luminal lamps, and on the other side, the reagent or the injection. Then we looked also how we can compare all the laboratories, considering a number of criteria like laboratory infrastructure, laboratory staffing and management, laboratory protocol standard and standard operating procedures, and the laboratory equipment. And each criteria was given a score, 1 for good, 2 for satisfactory, and inadequate for poor conditions. Then overall country laboratory ranking from 1 to 9, meaning that the number 1, based on this ranking, which is based on the expert judgment, we came up that at least the position 1 is occupied by the laboratory of the zonal laboratory in Tanzania, in Mwanza, and the second position by Uganda laboratory. Then it follow the laboratory in Rwanda. Then after Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, and the last position is taken by Burundi. Again, highlighting that we didn't manage to visit the laboratory in Goma due to security reasons. As a conclusion, water quality laboratory are at different levels in terms of human resource, infrastructure, and equipment, and most of them are not accredited. And where we are accredited for some few parameters, like the zonal laboratory in Mwanza, in Tanzania. The monitoring of basic parameters is generally done in most of the laboratory with the consistency of monitoring frequency. Water quality database and the management system are lacking in most of the countries, and the capacity building of the staff involved in water quality monitoring in the laboratory analysis is needed. Trainings on operation and maintenance of lab equipment is highly needed because the lack of small spare part stopped the whole system. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Jan, for that, for those highlights about the capacities of laboratories in the Nile Basin countries and that good work which you did to try and understand the issues which the laboratories are facing. So we are going to the next presenter, and I continue to encourage participants to write their questions on the chat box and try to direct to the right speaker so that he can prepare to address your question. At the end of this session on the presentations, we are going to have some session on questions and answer. Our next presenter is Waiswa Michael. Michael holds a master's degree in limnology and wetland management and is working with the Water Quality Management Department as a water analyst. He is passionate about applying scientific tools in the water sector to guide development of viable environmental management practices, policy formulation, and behavioral change for sustainable water resource use, socioeconomic development, ambient water quality monitoring. Welcome, Waiswa. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, moderator. My name is Waiswa Michael, as has been introduced, and I'll be sharing some of we've done on ambient water quality monitoring on the Makshon Bay. I work with the Ministry of Water and Environment in Uganda, the Water Quality Management Department. So this is an outline of what I'll be sharing, an overview of what we do as a ministry, a brief about the Bay, the methods that we used to work there, some findings, and then some conclusions there. So the Ministry of Water and Environment in Uganda ensures the provision of quality water and environment services to the population with the mandate of managing and sustainably utilizing the water and environment resources, improving the water quality resources thereof for the population, and ensuring better access to water and environmental resources. We operate a water quality monitoring network that is issue-based and integrated for water quality monitoring across the country. It has 147 stations that are currently under review. The objectives of this monitoring network are to determine the impact of human activities on the water resource quality, which speaks to SDG 6.3.2, the compliance of industrial and municipal discharges to national wastewater standards, which speaks to SDG 6.3.1, and the compliance of quality of domestic water bodies, water supplies to the national standards, which is SDG 6.1.1. So about the Makshon Bay, it is on the northern shores of Lake Victoria, and the catchment of the bay includes Kampala City, which is highly metropolitan in nature. The bay has multiple pressures to water quality, including the discharge of semi-treated effluent, which is the first picture. This is supposed to work with the wetlands as a secondary treatment process. The wetlands thereof are also highly degraded. The second picture is of cage fish farming. And then the third pressure is that you see in the pictures is of flower farms, which discharge pesticides and fertilizers from the runoff. This is where the bay is. This is the catchment of Lake Victoria, and the bay is inset there. We have 23 monitoring stations there that form a transect from the open waters from the bay to the open waters. The sampling for the last financial year included sampling of the water column. So we profiled the water column for all the 23 sites. We did sediment sampling there for heavy metals, and then the water samples for physiochemical analysis. The analysis includes analysis of heavy metals, nutrients, algae, and we used R to carry out the statistics. On to the findings. From the transects of the bay, the shorelines are heavily contaminated with nutrients, and there's a dilution effect towards the open water. It had, we observed a TN-TP ratio of 11:1. Phosphorus was limiting. This kind of waters are conducive for nitrogen fixing bacteria such as cyanobacteria, which we see in the on your right as one of the major taxa of algae in the bay. But more about the productivity on the left is a graph of the chlorophyll concentrations in the bay. At the shores and the mid areas of the bay, we noticed hypertrophic conditions, and in the open waters, it's mesotrophic with a concentration of 13 micrograms per liter. A bit more about the algae we identified. The first category is where some of the blue-green bacteria and also nitrogen-fixing bacteria was identified, but there are also green green algae, and chrysophytes and euclenophytes. What does this mean for the water resources there? Is that it reduces the aesthetics of the water, the green coloration of the water, and then it also increases the costs of water treatment due to clogging of the filters, reduced fisheries as contaminated water causes fish kills, and also the health impact related to algotoxins, which are cancerous. From the heavy metal analysis, we did analysis for 4 metals: cadmium, lead, copper, and nickel. Among others, we have the capacity to run many more, but these are select. So in the water column, we did not see much of that contamination, but we see most of it in the sediments, and it was highly variable for all the points. I want to draw attention to 2 sites which are highlighted on the graph on your right, which are the discharge points for 2 of the wastewater treatment plants that serve Kampala and its suburbs, which had the highest concentration of these metals. And what we also observe from this is that the heavy metal contamination is leaching from the water column and being sunk into the sediment of the bay, which could act as a significant source of these heavy metals in the water column when the bay mixes. What does this mean for the users of the lake? That there could be bioaccumulation in the fish tissue within the bay, which would subsequently reach humans when we consume the fish. And it could also increase the costs of water treatment to remediate the metals in the water. To conclude, is that the bay is becoming a significant source of pollution to the open lake adjacent to it, and that the most dominant algae species are blue-green in nature, which have significant health impacts because some of them release toxins into the water, and could also impact on fish productivity in the lake, and that heavy metals are settling in the sediment and may be resuspended in the water column, becoming a significant source of pollution even in the water which we use. What we recommend is that industrial municipal wastewater discharge facilities in Kampala ought to be well regulated, improved, that the degraded wetlands that are adjacent the bays should be restored, and that the buffer zones stipulated in the Act, the Environmental Management Act, should be protected. And we are also advocating for pollution control at source through resource efficiency and clean production of the industries that use the water from these bays or that discharge thereof. And with that, I thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you so much, Waiswa, for your presentation on Murchison Bay in Kampala and some of the water quality issues which has been experienced there. We are going to move on, and I can see very nice charts and also some engagement between the participants and the presenters through the Q&A. So I encourage that we continue to engage our speakers on some of the issues which would like to be addressed. Now we go to the next presentation. Our next presenter is Dr. Ahmed Hassan, who is a chemical engineer with 18 years of experience in multi-environmental disciplines such as water treatment, water quality, and is also a water quality modeler among several other issues. Dr. Ahmed is also is a part-time assistant professor at HSE department, that is the Faculty of Environmental Science and Disaster Management at the National Rabat University. Dr. Ahmed is going to present a presentation on spatial and temporal assessment of water quality in Merowe Dam site. So welcome, Dr. Ahmed, you have 10 minutes. Dr. Ahmed, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Proceed.
Is it okay? Okay.
You're okay now.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Now we'll present something about the temporal assessment of the water quality in Merowe Dam site. And I actually use this paper as a requirement for the environmental management plan for the dam site. Did the very things. The second things about this paper is already making as a baseline paper for the future investigation about the mining process in the Nile River State and North State. Okay. Yes, the study area located in the Merowe Dam site, the location around 350 kilometers from north of Khartoum. And this latitude and longitude of this area is already very clear here. The reservoir of the dams and the upstream dams and downstream. Upstreams is already falling in the Nile River State, and downstream falling in the North State of Sudan. The purpose of this study is to assess of the quality of the water in upstream and downstream of the dams, and also, as I mentioned before, this is one of the requirements for the dam operation for the environmental management plan. For the background of the water quality is already described the physical and chemical and biological characteristics as you know, and particular water of the intended uses. Now the water quality expressed is already using for the drinking water, irrigation, recreation, domestic water supply, fishers, industrial use, navigation, and etc. Have many suitables of this water virus depend for the requirement For example, for the navigation is no hardly, irrigation a minimum, recreation is the minimum, the domestic water supply is the minimum, aquatic culture is the minimum, and ecosystem functioning is already undesirable. For that reason, is already checked for many parameters at this site: temperature, electric conductivity, odor, TSS, total suspended solid, dissolved oxygen, BOD, COD, color, ammonia, pH, nitrate, orthophosphate, major ions, chlorophyll, E. coli for the bacteriology, sulfide and fluoride, and also include the heavy metals and medicine and hydrological parameter. For this, for the methodology is already used as the normal methodology for doing for investigate the water quality. Method used to collect various information and the data related to specific objective, and already this methodology already followed from long time from the start, the beginning of the dam site before the construction and during the construction and after the construction. It means now in the operation different method is the material equipment used to obtain primary and secondary assessment for the water quality. It means like collect the data is already from site and from the geographical site between for the reservoir and for the downstream site. Water sample in the Merewis Dam site collected in this sample collection is already like appointed by the like hotspots by the GPS variously, and already looking for the like planning before to go to field to collect the sample, and after that doing the same process to doing the proper sampling and proper marking for this sample, and after that coming to the laboratory. During this sampling process, have some like parameter is already like measured during the field in the field site, and after that the other parameter is already keep it in the we'll do it in the laboratory, including the bacteriology. Have some result in this area is already included. The parameter is already included, not like turbidity from the upstream side and downstream side. And you show here the curve is very clear. During the flood season between the June to September is already the turbidity is very high, and that is the two side, in the downstream and the upstream side, and also measuring many parameters like conductivity, total dissolved solid, total suspended solid, and related to the turbidity, the pH, dissolved oxygen, COD and BOD, as mentioned before, and clear here in the curve for the electric conductivity, for example, for the downstream and upstream, the trend is nearly the same, not have like a big change from the curve, even for the pH, and even of the whole the parameter is already mentioned here, following the standard. It means not very far from the standard. It means it's still in the standard of the WHO standards, is already used for this in this site. And looking also for the chloride and fluoride, the same trends. We have some change are related to morphology for this in the Nile River, in that area or that sites. Also the sulfate and nitrate total hardness have like a big some change in the upstream and downstreams. For the bacteriology is already the same trend, not big change. After that, did like some like showing this quality or this parameter measured is already following the water quality index or no. it means the quality of this water in the upstream and downstream is already like what the category, under what the category is already mentioned, this water.
2 minutes, please.
Yeah. Found clearly here in the water quality index, in the upstream it's about 94 or something, and in the downstream 87, and that include the inside the category of the good water quality. For the conclusion and recommendation for this paper, obtained assessment is shown in the Merowe Dam site reliable to the domestic purpose and physical parameter within the WHO standard, that is Sudanese. As mentioned before, I already this paper is already will be like a baseline paper to do more investigation about the upstream side of this Merowe, because already in the reservoir and already detailing of the reservoir in the Nile State River have some activities already, like mining activity or something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hamed, for your presentation on the water quality monitoring and also some of the issues at the Merowe Dam site, some quite interesting work which you conducted there. So participants, thank you so much for your patience. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank all the presenters for trying to keep time. I know most of you, I know we have been squeezed in time, but you have made it. So thank you so much for this. Now we are going to have a short session of 10 minutes for a question and answer session. And we might not be able to handle all questions, but we are going to invite a few questions which we can handle within those 10 minutes. I'm glad that some of you have been already addressed through the Q&A. So can we have like 2 or 3 questions? Yes,
Sorry,
I can.
Sorry, moderator. Yeah. I think
yes.
we still have another presentation of Dr. Ahmed. He has 2 presentations.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry, Dr. Benjamin.
Yeah.
But
so
I thought the program is
Dr.
already
Hamed.
changed or something. I thought the program is already changed or something.
No, you can present. If it is ready, please proceed.
Now, yes, ready. Now you show my screen. Are you showing my screen?
Yeah. No, I can see your last presentation, yeah?
Wait, I reshare. Now you share you show my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen, yeah? Proceed. Yeah, 10 minutes, please.
Yeah, yes, okay. Same as mentioned for the previous paper, looking for something for mining activity in the Nile River State, River Nile State and North Sudan, and make like review desk study about some reports and paper talking about the pollution of the mercury residential and agricultural area in River Nile State and North Sudan. Actually, this area is already focusing by the Sudan for the make like a hotspot for pollution for the mining activity in that place, and because it's very close to the Nile, and going to like some review for many reports and studies. It's already working at that area to find some impacts related to the mining activity. Okay, the same I said, the review desk is the studies to investigate the environmental health and impact for phenomenon of the spade gold extraction, mine contaminated the mercury, including that the gold, like the waste containing some gold or something is called carta, most important, which is the like thuria, the chemical is already using for that to extract a lot of extra gold. Increasing the demand for the mineral resource has scaled for the ACM, this is a small scale mining activity, mining operation for ACM industry and large scale mining. These are two sectors. ACM provide a livelihood of the million of people. ACM usually inform considerable potential cases in serious environmental damage and public health risk. Those working for the ILO, International Labor Organization, is already about 45 to 50 million people across 80 countries worldwide, according to the Devil Global database latest estimation. For the fact and statistics, over 1 million miners participate in the gold mining and extraction in Sudan. About 4 million dependent directly benefit from this activity. The activity cover about 14 of 18 Sudanese states. Artist gold mining account of around 85% of the total gold extracted. Total gold produced in this from 2010 to 2020, the quarter, that's around 280 metric ton. This is in the map is already showing the graphical distribution of the artisanal scale gold mining activity, and you saw clearly you have a lot of from the mining Nile River state and the North state have a lot of site is already very close to the Nile River. River Nile state is the large gold producing state in the Sudan. For this mixture, this is like going to mix the soil, and after that make like proper mud to extract the gold. The operation take place in the village and home near the Nile, and already have like some photo here. The main the cyanide and mercury, the main chemical used for this, and the high efficient extraction gold, because already use this chemical because already high efficient for the extraction the gold, and already have the impact of the mercury, and have like a lot of impact related the ecosystem, related to the people, related to the human, to the environment at all. For the biological also have like some magic using urine and blood and hair can be used in the measure the mercury exposure. Is already have like mentioned that studies report urine mercury will above 50 microgram mercury per gram, setting the effect of the bleed occur, and how around 100 microgram mercury per setting one of the reports is containing the field like have like some statistic as already for the carta and soil and water plant at that area, and also measure some blood and urine in the hair samples already from that area. You show here some this pile of soil is already the waste of this already used to extract more gold, and that the mixture is already used to mix them up. The result from that study and that report is already mentioned here in this table. For the washing water, drinking water, carta and soil, human urine, sheep and goats milk, human blood have like a minimum and maximum, and already what will already shown for the thing. Even for have like some like heavy metals is already mentioned at that area about the lead and cadmium available there. Have like other studies already looking for this review desk study belong to the many area, many village Okay, many village is already mentioned here, the blood sample and the hair sample, and about all of them like very very high content on this gold mine. The main problem for that is already the mining area here is already have some flash flood, and heavy rain is already like flush this waste and this high content of the chemical to the Nile River, and after that we'll be looking to like this example for this year and 2 years ago have some heavy rain flood flash flood just flush the area. For the recommendation and conclusion for this paper, all the studies or report recommended removing the transfer of this waste by isolated place and under the care of supervision. Also recommended to conducting deep investigation among the minor other regions in the state. Furthermore, the enforcement of the strengthening of the legislation and activities and activity supervisor of these activities by like HESNAR or many other organizations conducts a research study to investigate the Nile pollution starting from that area until the Merewi Dam, because already the tailing of this Merewi Dam reservoir is already start from the Nile River state by using appropriate water quality model. This is some references already used for this paper. Thank you for your attention.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for that quite interesting presentation on heavy metal pollution, especially mercury in the Nile Delta state. It is really something which is of great concern, especially on issues of environmental management in that area. So thank you. Once again, I say thank you to all presenters for committing your time and also making those great presentations. Now we come to the end of the presentations, and we are going to have 10 minutes, as I said, of question and answer. And let's have maybe 2 or 3 people maybe who have some burning questions, which are mainly on the topics which has been presented. So please, can you maybe show by raising your hand and we see whom we can pick? Anybody with a burning question? Participants, this is your time. Anybody, or maybe you can speak, you can try to speak, you can unmute and speak. Participants, you have a question, you have an issue, you have something to add, maybe. We can give you like 1 or 2 minutes.
Hello, moderator. Let's start with Simon Otungo.
Okay,
Simon Otungo.
Simon.
Simon, please
Simon,
unmute. So if he's still muted, you can go to the next.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Simon. Welcome.
Yeah. For now, I don't have a question direct, so you can proceed to other. Thank you.
Okay. I don't seem to see who has raised their hands.
You have also Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning. Do you hear me?
We can hear you, Jacqueline. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, moderator, and thank you, the presenters, for the good presentation. By the way, I managed to connect while Dr. Jen has finished his presentations, but I have checked in the Q&A questions. Most of the questions are based on the list of source of pollutions in the Nile Basin. So we would like really to hear from the presenters. Normally, it should be better if you have really the list of the potential source of polluters and the mitigation measures. As you know, we have this river basin organization, Kagera, Mara, SMM, in the NEL, and we have also other initiatives in Entro. So yes, the basin is really big, and the financial means, we know it's not easy, and we know that under the NCCR project, which really it's helped the country, but despite the lack of data, as I see what Dr. Jen responded, but we really need even that, at least I don't know how this can be. Maybe NBI can conduct a study, find small funding, so that it can list a potential source of pollution in the basin and show the country how this can be mitigated. So that maybe even if the fund will be available, we can know how to start from that list elaborated under Nile Basin Initiative. Otherwise, the presentation was good, and I thank you, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Yeah, Jacqueline is the track of Rwanda. Thank you for your concern. Yeah, I don't know whether Dr. Jean, you have anything on that, because she was more of giving a general comment. Dr. Jean, please.
Thank you, moderator. There is a long list of pollution in the Nile Basin countries, which mainly came from the literature review and from the previous study conducted in the basin. Mainly via poor management and the land and the use of land in the basin. We have also the point source of pollution, mainly due to the lack of wastewater treatment plant in most of the urban area in the basin. Also, uncontrolled use of fertilizers and the chemicals. So the list is not exhaustive, but also without also excluding the atmospheric deposition in the basin. Increase of population and the pressure on the natural resource and the irrigation in any downstream part of the basin. So the list is long. So, concerning what the Nile Basin is doing, also we have come up with a number of 44 hotspots in the whole basin, and these 44 hotspots were validated by the countries based on available data. We are doing the modeling. We did also we are developing the database and the modeling of those hotspots. So it's a continuous process. Still, what is lacking is the data, the baseline data. And with this ongoing project, we are trying to support the country with continuous monitoring to have baseline data. And when we have information on what is available, the current status, then you can go also, we can look also to the trend analysis, and we can identify also where we have major issues and what are the possible interventions in the future. Back to you, moderator.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jean, for those he's doing, and also on the issue of the identification of water quality hotspots. We know that the catchment, the basin is huge, and there is a lot of work which needs to be done. And at least NILSEC or rather NBI is doing good work towards identifying the water quality pollution hotspots. Now we have from the participants, we have Mohammed Sali Yassin. Please, can you quickly ask your question, Mohammed?
Yes, thank you. You hear me? You confirm?
Yeah,
Dr. Benjamin. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. My question maybe goes to Benjamin, to Stewart, and maybe to others. This wonderful combination of the citizen engagement in water quality using the citizen science is a good idea. However, how it, is it induced by UNEP or by other bodies? And in the presentation, I don't see Egypt. I don't see Egypt among the national counter water bodies reported. And also, I see that Sudan is not submitting since certain date, as well as South Sudan. What are the reasons behind that, and why Egypt is not considered? And surprisingly, also in the other presentation of Mr. Jan, Dr. Jan, also is he reported some laboratories, but not in Egypt. Egypt is excluded. So why Egypt is not reported here? Especially that we consider that the main discharge of all the Nile basin goes through Egypt to the Mediterranean Sea. So, and also another legal point, legal question for Professor, could be there any voluntary obligation? So the countries can make a voluntary declaration for guaranteeing certain water quality or monetary mechanism, instead of if they don't want to sign to conventions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mohammed, for those three issues, and I would request Stewart to address the first one just briefly, maybe 1 minute, and then Dr. Jan, you will address the issue of the laboratory issues, and then Professor, in that order. Welcome, Stewart.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed, for the question. It's a very good one. I'll answer. There were three parts to that question. I guess the first one is why Egypt was greyed out on the map. Unfortunately, in 2020, despite our best efforts, we were unable to secure a submission for this indicator from Egypt. This year, for this data drive, it looks positive, but we still haven't received a submission from Egypt. We've been trying very hard to work with the ministry there to secure that submission, but we're not quite there yet. So if you have any contact or sway on that one, that would be very much appreciated. On both Sudan and South Sudan, again, the same reasons. They did both report in 2017 for the first global data drive, but didn't in 2020, so that's why they were greyed out. But we again are working with the respective ministries to ensure that they are able to submit this year for the third global data drive. And the last question on the citizen science one, it's just simply, each of those projects that were shown, it's all about testing the feasibility of using citizen science for national reporting. So in each of those projects, the national agency or ministry is on board, and we're working with those and through them with the local communities to collect these data, and we're testing the different ways of combining these two data streams for one single assessment. And there are different options. Each model of those in those countries is slightly different. There isn't one which is the same. Like in Kenya and Tanzania, it's using the local water user associations. In Zambia, it was a WWF project that was used. In Malawi, it's another model again, and similarly in Sierra Leone, they're different models. So we're still at very much the testing phase, but this year, for the first time, citizen data will be combined with national agency data for SDG 6 reporting, and that is a first, which we're very excited about. So that's good, and it is a data source which we think will be useful going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Stewart. Dr. Jan, please.
Thank you, moderator, for the question about the country need assessment of the laboratories and why Egypt is not part of this assessment. The NBI activities, so that's the reason we didn't conduct a need assessment of the laboratory in Egypt. 4 is a part of the Nile Basin countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor, please.
Thank you very much for a very good question, especially water quality data. Now, the voluntary exchange between between states is very, very difficult because of the sovereignty issues, security issues, and states are very difficult, in terms, unless they are compared through, an agreement. But the best way to have voluntary real exchange of data as an academic, which I have seen, is through research, through research institutions, because these institutions do have data. And though, of course, it will not be formal, but at least you can be able to get the data through research institutions and exchange, research, results. That's one. But between states, that's very difficult. And because of the sovereignty, security issues that states don't want to do unless they are compelled to do under an agreement, a convention. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prof. And also thank you, Mohamed, for your question. I hope that it has been addressed. Now, I can see there is one person, that is Samuel Wani Onesimo. Samuel, is it possible maybe you can use the chat, because we have only like 25 minutes and we need to go to the panel discussion. So, or it's just, we can give you 1 minute, please, maybe. Samuel?
Is still
Samuel,
muted?
You are muted. Okay, Samuel, maybe as we continue with the as we come to towards the end of the panel discussion, we are going to maybe hear what you have to say. So participants, please welcome. We have another session for 20 minutes of a panel discussion. And in this session, we are going to have 3 panelists. We are going to have 3 panelists who are going to guide us on some key issues or key questions in the panel discussion. And the first person is Dr. Jan Namungize, who is the water quality expert at NILSEC. That is one of our panelists. The other panelist is engineer Auret Axel, who is working with the Anter Group in France. And the third panelist is Stewart Warner, who is the UNEP Global Environment Monitoring System for fresh water. So he's based in UNEP. So these are our 3 panelists, and they also presented. So we introduced to them. And I would just start by directing some key areas which I would like Dr. Jan to maybe to address. And this question, which I'm directing to Dr. Jan, I would want him maybe for 5 5 minutes or less to address the issue of what contribution is the NBI making towards water quality monitoring and management in the Nile Basin. I want again maybe to inform the panelists that Dr. Jan is the water quality expert at the Nile Basin Initiative, that is at NileSec in Entebbe, Uganda. So Dr. Jan, what contribution is the NBI making towards water quality monitoring and management in the Nile Basin? Welcome, Dr. Jan.
Thank you, moderator. Before tackling the question, let's first have a common understanding on what is the water quality monitoring itself, as defined as the acquisition of quantitative and the representative information about the physical, chemical, and the biological characteristics of a water body over time and space. The water quality monitoring can be done at national, regional, and global scale in order to identify where water quality is inadequate or under threat. This is a definition just widely used, extracted from UNEP, most recent report of 2021. Then what can we expect for a functioning water quality monitoring program? It can enable to assess the current state of water quality and the trend over emerging problem of water quality pollution and estimate the flux of pollutant. It can enable evaluation of effectiveness of management and remediation activities and provide information on the efficiency of operation and activities. With the water quality monitoring, we generate data, but the data has to be transformed in information to be shared to various audience from including scientists and even non-scientist audience. Then what is the NBI is doing in water quality monitoring? When it comes to management, we collect data, but we need how to manage such data considering how much it does cost. The collection of water quality, sometimes improving physical collection of data, laboratory analysis, and result and the report writing require a lot of funding resources. The reason why also we have to have in place a kind of data management system. What has been done at Nile Basin in
Dr. Jan, you seem to have lost you, or is it? Okay,
Hello, moderator.
Yeah, you are back, Dr. Jan.
Okay, it was internet interruption. So what has been done at Nile Basin level so far, we have a regional water quality monitoring network, which is being built and established, which includes some hydrological monitoring and water quality monitoring stations. This hydrological monitoring also meteorological station for rain gauge and even data logger for data transmission from the real-time sensor for water quality monitoring, which will be provided to the country. We are also planning to provide feed toolkits for in-situ measurement of some parameters and even some sediment sampling equipment to the countries. Also, this will include some basic water quality equipment and even laboratory equipment which do include even grass weigher to the countries. Also, the capacity building of staff involved in the collection of data and analysis also is part of what the NBI is doing currently. And we are building on existing and complete the initiative as well. At the end also, a Nile Basin database on water quality is being developed, and very soon, before the end of this month, we will be having it, and it will be linked to the integrated knowledge portal of NBI. In the same token, also we are doing the modeling of the of national and regional experts in water conservation practices, pollution control and modeling, and operation and maintenance of database and the water quality equipment, which are some of the major issues in the basin. For the sustainability of what we are doing also, we have established a regional and national water quality working groups, which will continue implementation of the project activity after its closure. Back to you, moderator.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jan, okay, for that highlights. Yeah, there was some bit of interruptions, but I think we're able to, NBI is doing in terms of water quality monitoring, very clear. I would like to go to the second panelist, and this is a question which is directed to Engineer Axel, who is the head of the environmental prediction within the Antea group in France. Yeah, so the question which Engineer Axel would like to address is what are the challenges and opportunities for water quality management in the Nile Basin? Welcome, Engineer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So there is a lot of opportunity for the water quality management in NBI, but as mentioned, Dr. Jean, we see that we are at the beginning of a huge process for the NBI, meaning that all the questions we already have as turning into how to have a better assessment of the water quality of the Nile Basin and among the Nile Basin. So implementing the monitoring network, implementing a database able to store the data, as Mr. Stuart Warner present, using other sources to gather and to make some water quality assessment among the basin. All these actions are going in the same way to enhance the monitoring, to enhance the knowledge of the water quality of the basin. Of course, we know that the pollution in general are really linked with human activities as a whole. And we see that there is a lot of different activities among the Nile Basin. So, and there is other driving forces surrounding that. These driving forces are population growth. These driving forces are climate change, and also the economic and socio-economic development of each country among the basin. So meaning that we have current issues of water pollution, and we will have future issues linked to the evolution of all these driving force in general. So I think that the issues for me, the main issues is also to have a good structuration of the water quality monitoring network among the basin by distinguishing what we want to follow and what we want to measure and what we want to monitor. To be clear, it is necessary to implement what we can call long-term trend monitoring station. and by identifying some station, and it is currently done by some of project by NBI, but by identifying key water quality station that can give us the trend for the actual situation and the global trend of the basin. And we have also to implement some specific measurement on specific areas, such as hotspot that has been identified, to go deeply in detail of what is the local impact. So we have to distinguish local and general impact and general trend of the basin. But for me, what is currently setting up by the NBI is really a starting point. The NBI start to setting up a real monitoring network in real time. They are also trying to gather all the information and data coming from each country. So each country is really part of the process. We starting the way to develop water quality database at the scale of the NBI to start the capitalization of the data and to start the process of gathering all this information. NBI have also the integrated knowledge platform that is setting up to provide some information, some scientific report, technical report, etc. And we are also trying to implement some tools for modeling, for prediction, etc. So we are really at a starting process, and we see that it is huge for NBI. And the main issue for me will be also to maintain this all these input for the future. But of course, there is a lot of opportunity behind the water quality, because we know that it's true that among the planet, we are facing through climate change, and there is a lot of discussion about water resource availability in terms of quantity. But we have to keep in mind that new activities, industrial activities, agricultural activities, socioeconomic development is bringing also a lot of new pollutant, new perturbation, and we have to take into consideration that, of course, we need some water to ensure the safety of people, but we need also a good water quality of this water to ensure the health and safety, And I think it is a philosophy also of the sustainable development goals, because now the water quality is really an important point of the sustainable development goals. So there is a lot of things to do to enhance. It passed through upgrading laboratory and water quality data acquisition process, water quality data acquisition, and we see that the NBI is doing the job, if I can say that, to provide all these support and all these elements, hardware, software, etc. They are really making an effort to bring all these elements for the future. Now it is a starting process. So this is for me the opportunity also. This is an opportunity to discuss with university, with a lot of things.
Yeah, thank you so much, Engineer Axel, for those comments. Yeah, it is really interesting to understand the efforts that NBI is making on issues of water quality monitoring, and also trying to equip laboratories, coming up with a regional monitoring network. This is really the right step. And I understand also there is the issue of automated stations. So it is good to take note of this. And I know within us, there are policy makers, and I know that NBI would want our support, especially now that they are establishing a database. So we need to do our part and support these efforts by NBI to establish a regional database. Yeah, so maybe let's go to the next question. which is directed to Stuart Warner. And Stuart is he works with the UNEP and is an SDG indicator specialist. So I would like Stuart to address what best practices and innovation exist in water quality monitoring. So welcome, Stuart Warner.
Thank you, moderator. Yeah, that's a good question. There are lots of innovations available. And I mentioned just one when we were talking about the citizen science and the potential of citizen science data to feed into national monitoring. Of course, satellite-based Earth observation is another one which has great potential, and modelled data as well can help to fill some of these data gaps around water quality monitoring and assessment. But I think what's often not made clear is that for the potential of all these innovative and sort of new technologies, what they rely upon, and there is no substitute for, is doing the basic stuff right. So it's good to see that that's recognised through the Nile Basin Initiative, that the basic monitoring is needed. The in situ basic monitoring expansion and development is absolutely essential to make use of any of these new potential innovations. And I think, without beating around the bush, I think it's quite clear from the SDG 632 information that for the Nile Basin countries, the information available isn't where it needs to be able to protect people and ecosystems right now and into the future. I think we just simply don't have enough information to make the right management decisions. The indicator and what I presented about the lack of, or the differences in monitoring and assessment capacity for Nile Basin countries. Now, that's only just, I was just looking at the water bodies reported on and the monitoring values. But the SDG indicator and the implementation of that indicator is much more useful than that, because it gives you really great insight for a country to be able to report on the indicator. You don't just have to have the monitoring network in place, but also the data management capacity, the reporting frameworks and alignment in place. You need to have the target threshold values in place. Going back to the professor's talk earlier, this idea of having national water quality standards, it's been really made clear through the implementation of this indicator over the last number of years that many countries don't have suitable water quality standards. And that's not just the case for the Nile Basin countries, but also in Europe, where I'm based. The Water Framework Directive has been in place for over 20 years, yet still the target thresholds countries are using are too lenient to really protect water quality. So I think it really comes down to looking at what questions are you trying to ask? What answers are you looking for? And I would say that, even like this SDG indicator is about very basic information on nitrates, phosphates, conductivity, oxygen levels, and pH. Yet still, the data available to answer those very broad, long-term, spatial questions aren't available. So I think before we talk of innovation and looking forward, I think we really need to make sure that the basic information is there in the first place to avail of the potential of the innovation which is there. And just to finish, GEMS Water has been around since the 1970s. It's one of UNEP's oldest programs. And you could say that what GEMS Water is trying to do and what we've seen here, GEMS Water has been trying to do for all that time on the global scale. Right, there is the GEMSTAT water quality database. There's a capacity development center that we've been working on. It's still, I think it's only through this work that it makes it really clear that the task ahead of us is huge. It really is. And we're only starting to make progress. And there's a lot more to be done. So I'll stop there. I could keep going, but I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Stuart. Yeah, for some of those key highlights on for some of the innovations, and also not only innovations, but we need to do even the basics. You know, we are in a region which in terms of data and also reporting, as you presented before, that it is highly limited. So we need to do the basics in terms of monitoring, the basic parameters like the nutrients, which is a major issue in the Nile Basin. If we can start there, I think we can be at a good standing. And I really still continue to recommend NBI for what they are doing to make sure most of the countries are able to report on these basic water quality parameters. Our time is almost up because we were supposed to stop by 11:30. So now I would like to invite the host from NBI so that maybe they can give us a wrap up on our webinar this morning. It has really been great and wonderful moderating this session. So thank you to all of you presenters. You did wonderful presentations, and also thank you participants for your patience during this session. So over to the hosts at NileSec. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Thank you, presenters. As wrap up to what we've been discussing, we've seen key messages from the presentation on citizen science.
Dr. Jean, I think there are network issues, or is on my side? I don't know.
I think it might be on our side. Or do you hear me well now?
I hear you.
Okay, I was just summarizing what we've discussed, what is available in the Nile Basin in terms of water quality monitoring, equipment, tools, initiative and the project being conducted by Nile Basin Initiative to support the country in water quality monitoring. And we have received the insight on application of citizen science to report on SDG 653 and what is the plan also for the future to have good water quality monitoring and management practices and conservation in the basin. To invite them to the second webinar tomorrow at the same time, which will be on investing in water quality management. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye all of you. Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.